Legal disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. With that being said, I do not claim ownership of any copyrighted material featured in these videos, and I'm not making these videos for profit. Although parts of this video are overblown for comedic effect, this video was ultimately spearheaded by my genuine opinion on this topic. This video, however, is at the end of the day, nothing more than constructive criticism. Taking malicious action against any parties mentioned in this video is childish and will not be tolerated here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is me, your boy, Nathan Sniper, coming at you with some more content. Listen, and listen good. We need to have a talk. Now, I've been a fan of Nintendo's for years. I've admired their games, and as a company, growing up as a little kid, I admired them too, and I'd send them stuff like fan mail, praising them for their work, and praising them for how their classic games have aged so well that even someone like me, who comes from a generation way beyond the Super Nintendo, because I grew up, I was raised around the time the Wii was a fresh thing, so I was introduced to a bunch of these classic games through Virtual Console, and I was basically praising Nintendo for how their games have aged so well that even someone like me could play them, while also respecting the new games that they put out every year. And these past few years, I've come to realize that Nintendo doesn't have that same magic to it that it used to. And what really sparked my motivation to make this video was a comment thread I was in. No vendetta or bad blood against any of the people in the comment section. I respect all the opinions and whatnot because, you know, it's a free country. We don't live in the realm of Kim Jong-un or, Russians are trying to make a stance, but we don't live in a communist dystopia where freedom isn't a real thing anymore yet. But I was just talking about how, well, the comment itself I misinterpreted, which might be on my back, because the comment itself was praising the Switch and comparing it to being the next Super Nintendo. And I thought it was, at first, slamming the Switch and being like, yeah, no, the Switch, current Nintendo couldn't put out anything of the same tier that they would have on the Super Nintendo, that same quality that they put into the Super Nintendo installments into the Switch. And then after I read it a few times, I thought that comment was satire. And then I started to see that there were people that were agreeing with him after I wrote my response, and I got swarmed after that. So, I decided to, you know, not make this video as a direct response to those people, but just convey my feelings about current Nintendo, especially after some of their more current decisions, and why I no longer respect them as a company. It's a hard video for me to make, but I feel like I need to get my opinion out there. So let's start off with what initially motivated me to make one of these kinds of videos last year. And last year, I still had a shred of respect for Nintendo back then, alright? I still thought they were a cool company back then. And that was their treatment of their classic games. Now, listen to me, alright? I like to collect games. The thing that makes game collecting fun to me, at least, is just getting a hold of all these games legitimately. I know, sure, you can just emulate the whole lot of them if you want to be a cool kid, but I like the feeling of, you know, being, well, I guess Scrooge McDucking it up and getting a hold of these games by official means. That's why I still lug around my 3DS and I have a whole shelf of old PlayStation and Switch and Wii games. It's because I like to, well, they do make good decorations, I'll admit, but I like to carry these games around, you know what I mean? Like, have these games all there and own them. Right, and that's the big thing here, is that these games are all like an art form, and being able to experience this art form in a, you know, in a specific form factor and long term
is great, and that's why I personally like the 3DS. New 3DS, one of my favorite road trip consoles ever. Alright, not only can you bring all your old DS games and your 3DS library with you, but it has a great library of classic games, like Game Boy Color. It's still the only way you can legitimately buy those anymore, by the way. It's the last console that keeps those going, if you didn't know already. It's the last console that is still keeping the Game Boy legacy alive through this service that's officially distributing this library of them. And on top of that, you have all these Super Nintendo games. So it's kind of stingy that you need a new 3DS to run them, because let's be real here, alright?
An old 3DS can sure as shit emulate
Super Nintendo game. I'd understand if they were doing this with N64 or like, what's another like advanced console? Like, hey everybody, back at you from the future again. Now, sorry I'm not making this a gag, this is just a quick thing, a quick little bite-sized error I gotta take accountability for, so sorry for that. Now onto the real apology here. If you didn't know, I'm Canadian. The footage and the audio kind of desync here, and there's a bit of a technical issue here, so over the video, instead of me talking to the camera, I'll just have some gameplay over it. I know that's the lazy commentary channel cliche, but I see this as a win because I see this as more of an opportunity to test out my capture card. So, yeah. Sorry for that. I hope you guys are able to look past that and enjoy the rest of the video. Not PS1 level, but like, advanced enough? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you get the point. Anyways, moving on from that, you have all these people that are probably going, oh yeah, well, with digital games, you don't really own them, because with physical games, you actually have them, and you can put them on your shelf and give them to people, and they don't disappear with DRM. No, listen, alright? Digital games depends on how luxe they are, and usually when it comes to old games, these studios aren't very, picky about, restricting access to them in that way. Like, sure, you had that incident with the PlayStation Network where they reset all the PlayStation 1 games to expire in 1964 so nobody could access Chrono Cross anymore. That was an accident. I'm sure Sony wouldn't actually do that. I'm sure they would. That's got to be a thing only for like certain users that abuse the system or something, right? Because why would they bother? It just seems so pointless to me that they would start DRMing old games like this. But what really makes all this come into play here is the long-term preservation of this art form. And when it comes to these games, sure, there's still DRM, but in the long term, these games, on the 3DS at least, these classic games, it's a more steady way of preserving them than on a limited time subscription service on the Switch, which is being paywalled off, and eventually, once the Switch dies, it's all going down with the ship, right? Once that service is discontinued, it's all going, inevitable. Sure, they can restrict your access to them if your account is like blacklisted or something, but they'll probably do that with every digital game you own. It's not just the classic games. Now, in terms of what they're doing now what they're doing is they're not even letting you own these games anymore, and they know what they're doing. That's well, not really the despicable part, but that's the part that really irks me about this, is that they know what they're doing. And they think, they want people to, like, jump onto this boat, and because they think it's like a salvation for all their classic games. All these games are doomed to go down with the ship once, they discontinue the Switch inevitably, which probably won't happen for years, maybe even way after the 3DS dies. Maybe there'll be another handheld console that'll die before the Switch discontinues. Can't really think of one. Maybe the PS Vita probably will die by then. But anyways, this service, that's probably the farthest thing from an effective form of game preservation, and physical media too is ineffective because while it's cool to have all these things as shelf warmers, they'll eventually naturally rot out and stop working. You know? Ladies and gentlemen, this is urgent. I come from the future bearing bad news. I come from a day in the future, and this timeline has only gotten worse. No, I'm not actually, like, that, like, what's the word here, like, alert about this. Like, I'm not that, I'm confused to describe it, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, that actually shocked about it. I just look sweaty because I just got back from a day out in Sable Beach with the boys. Not the same fellas I saw for dinner a few days ago, but instead I got to see my boy Grape Jam, and I got to meet the real Fast Man in the flesh. I don't know if the real Fast Man is a YouTube channel, but you know, we met through Instagram, and he's been an old friend of Nick's for a while, and we've just been talking, and we have a mutual respect of anime and Breaking Bad. So yeah, shoutouts to you, Fast Man. It was nice to see you in person. But no, enough talk. We need to move on to the urgent stuff. We need to move on to the urgent update. So, a tweet was released a day before I filmed the original take, and this tweak was tweet? I didn't have anything to drink before recording this, I promise. This tweet was put out by Masahiro Sakurai, who is the creator of Smash Bros. So he knows what he's talking about. He works with Nintendo. And translated, this tweet is basically warning us that as of, you know, probably a week after getting this edited, if not 2 weeks from August 14th, the eShop is going to get funding axed. Now, what I mean by that is they did the same thing when they killed the Wii Shop channel, but essentially, they've already removed the ability to add in funds with a credit card, and now they're going to go about removing the ways to add in funds with an eShop card. So that means this is phase 2 of the third impact here. This is when the Ava series are getting deployed up in here. All right, this is when Asuka has her last stand. All right, this is the Game Boy's. This is literally the Game Boy's last stand because this is the last console. Game Boy games are still. Well, I mean, Shantae is on Switch, but like, I mean, you know, as a respective like first-party thing, this is the last place Game Boy games have been released. So grab those while you still can, and grab your retro games with less DRM while you still can, because once they're gone, man, there's no long-term solution.
One day earlier.
I can't do it in this accent. All this would be dandy, and I could just title this a sequel to my game preservation rant if I was only talking about how they treat classic games, because, as it turns out, even modern games aren't the best. Now, granted, there are some modern games Nintendo's put out that have been actually masterpieces, like Animal Crossing. That kept me sane through 2021. Metroid Dread blew me away, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land was amazing. But also the golden years of the Switch were also great, like the first-party launch games, Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Chef's Kiss. Those were just the greatest. But over the years, there has been a definite decline in the amount of quality they put into their games. And this started from a steady slope. And by steady slope, I mean the games they put out weren't actually bad. Like, you had stuff like Kirby, Star Allies, or Pokemon Gen 8. I haven't played Legends Arceus yet, so I can't say for sure if that one's bad, but definitely the core Gen 8 and the Generation 4 remakes, those are just an example of it. But with those games, you can tell that while they aren't bad, they just don't have the same kind of soul and quality put into them that you get from older games in the series. And, you know, in that regard, they're kind of mediocre, but they just don't feel like they should be in the same
spirit. As was it? Spirit? Yes, he did, sir.
And now we're at an era where Nintendo gives so little of a shit that they're willing to release broken, half-assed games. Now, granted, again, as I said, they've been doing a good job lately. Kirby Forgotten Land and Metroid Dread are two examples of games that have come out in the last 2 years that have blown me away. But, Mario sports reboots, you know, they brought out Golf and Strikers.
This, do what? Long putt.
What the fuck did you do? What the hell is that? Okay. How do you do that?
And then they tried to reboot Wii Sports as well.
This was the screen that came next. What in the Nintendo? It's weird because the original Miis and Wii Sports were Miis. No arms, no legs, literally just input from the system creator. But why does this feel more cheap and soulless than that? Somehow it seems more targeted. It seems like they're trying way too hard. Wii Sports is a game with almost zero personality, but that is its personality. Meanwhile, this is aggressively colorful facial expressions to detail all the emotions of sport.
And all three of those games were almost EA tier, or like launch Cyberpunk tier broken. Old Nintendo would absolutely not even consider releasing that. Old Nintendo would never, like, you would never, like, maybe there'd be a chance, but like, you would never see old Nintendo release something like that. And even if it was rushed, old Nintendo would do something clever with it, like what happened with Majora's Mask, where that was almost a rushed asset flip of Ocarina of Time, but they were very creative with the way they told the story in that game, and that made it stand out. Whereas with something like Mario Party, or not Mario Party, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, it's just a broken, not Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, what was I thinking? Mario Golf. It's just broken and almost in a state where it shouldn't be publicly available, and they still price it as a full-price game, and then they say, oh yeah, no, excuse me, yeah, we'll just give you some free, it's no biggie, yeah. It is. You clearly don't put the same care into your games as you used to. And that is just one of the big things that breaks my heart, but, well, there's more of a runtime to this video, so it's not just the games that are disappointing these days, that the amount of care and quality they've been putting into. How's it going, everybody? Future Bit Sniper here, coming at you from day 2 of the Retro Gaming Wasteland. Now, funny, because I originally retook this because I was unsatisfied with how pessimistic I came off sounding in the original cut, but as it turns out, the cut I redid fell victim to the Final Cut curse, which has been taking all my videos, whether it be through technical difficulties or through copyright abuse this summer, and lo and behold, I have to end up retaking it again, so yeah, let's get on with it. Now, as I said in the video itself, there is indeed more of a runtime to this, and that's because there's more to this issue than just the software and the games, right? I could just call it a day and make this a sequel to my game preservation rant, if it weren't for this one looming issue that's been around since the Golden Age, right? Since the Switch was at launch, right? And people at first were very strongly against Nintendo for this, and there was even a lawsuit about this, right? But even now, Nintendo doesn't really seem to be taking a whole lot of accountability for this, and even though they took a small shred of accountability for this, fanboys are still defending them for it, going, oh yeah, no, if your Joy-Cons are defective, just send them in and they'll get replaced, yada yada yada, that's right. We're talking about Joy-Con drift now, baby. Joy-Con drift. Now, if you don't know what Joy-Con drift is, it's a manufacturing issue, or a manufacturing defect, that comes from the Switch being, let's be brutally honest here, poorly and cheaply produced, and despite numerous revisions to the Switch and whatnot, there's still not been a proper fucking fix to this. And this is an issue because it causes issues in gameplay because the something in the joysticks wears down and makes the inputs get all fucky, and it makes the direction of your movements and stuff where the camera starts spinning around everywhere. And Nintendo hasn't really done a good job fixing this and addressing it because, yeah, as I said, there is a service where you can send them in and have them fixed, and I say that with air quotes because it's not long term, because they'll still inevitably start drifting again in a cycle, literally, or, you know, you can just blatantly have them sent in and replaced, and that isn't going to do you any good either. Now, of course, the fanboys are going to come at me going, oh, why didn't you buy a Pro Controller, you numbnuts? Well, actually, I do have a Pro Controller, but the thing is, that still removes half of the original purpose of the Nintendo Switch being a portable system, right? Now, the thing is, I'd be content and not make this video if this was a thing of the past. Maybe I'd do a podcast or something with my friends and just poke fun at this in good fun as a joke in the future. Like, haha, oh yeah, remember the time there was that massive hardware defect with the Switch that caused it to make the controller defective over time? But no, after 5 fucking years, there is still no proper fix to the Switch, and it doesn't hold up well. You want an example of something that does hold up over time, that was carefully put together, had love and care put into it, and is still a quality piece of machinery after all this time? This, my friends, is a Game Boy Pocket from 1996 from my collection. You hear that and see that? It powers on just fine. And you see that? Yeah. It still reads my Pokemon Green cartridge just fine. The Game Boy is a testament to the point I'm trying to make here, in that when it came to their old consoles, despite Nintendo probably being hit the hardest by console limitations in the past, they always had creative ways to get around it, and when they do creatively get around these things, these limitations, and put out quality pieces of hardware and software, like the Game Boy, they stand the test of time and last decades, and this Game Boy predates me by a decade or two. That's very impressive. Unfortunately, throughout their whole motto, their whole service of their whole range of products, whether it be their consoles as I'm bringing up now, or as I brought up before in this video, their games and especially their legacy games, they don't care about the long term anymore. They just care about sticking in long enough to stick it to the competition. And that's what grinds my gears about this, is that there are still fanboys who are nostalgic and whatever to Nintendo, and they love and appreciate everything they do because it's got that certified Nintendo seal of quality on there. Despite Nintendo themselves kind of abandoning their philosophy of making the most of limitations and creatively putting out games and stuff that you can tell have love and care put into them, are refined pieces of art, and despite being fairly limited, hold up over time. Now, is this redeemable? Of course this is redeemable. Nintendo isn't some kind of third world dictator or something. Well, I mean, they do slave labor, I think, to put their consoles together. I've heard rumors of that at least. But they can redeem themselves if they decide to start giving a damn about making their games properly, fixing their defective hardware, or making adequate means of preserving their games. But as it stands now, I can't say I see Nintendo with the same adoration I used to as a little kid anymore. Well, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, share this with your friends and family or whoever you like. Follow me on all my other social media, linked in the description below. Oh yeah, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Ciao.